As I kind of talked about or thought about what I wanted to share with you guys, obviously we had a USDA report on Monday, and you guys already know that, so I really didn't want to dig up those old numbers and ruin your lunch. But as I thought about what we could do, as I look at any survey that seems like it's ever done amongst producers, the one thing that it keeps coming back to is people just flat out struggle with marketing grain. I don't know if any of you guys could identify with that at all, but it seems to be the one area that producers probably feel like they do the worst job in is actually marketing that crop. So what I want to do today is just share a little bit about what we do. I'm from South Dakota, and we've got a farm there that I still do the marketing for. I want to talk about how I market that grain and kind of the trip that I took to get to where I'm marketing that grain right now. This winter we're going to have some meetings that are going to lay out more in depth of what I'm going to cover today. So today's more of a teaser, I guess, to kind of introduce these concepts. But I want to start out by talking about that greed, hope, fear cycle of marketing. I don't know if any of you guys resonates with this at all or not. I think we've all probably ridden that deal. And when I look at that, I'm reminded of an incident that happened to me back in the mid-1980s. In the mid-1980s, I was trading feed ingredients, working for a company. We were both buying and selling feed ingredients. And one of the commodities I traded was whole cottonseed. And as I got to know the people in the industry, I met this guy that was like the cottonseed king. He had a PhD from Texas A&M. His dissertation had been building this model that predicted what cotton prices were going to do based on all the fundamentals in the market, right? And he was really excited about his work and was starting to share it with me. And he had done the analysis, and it was his belief that cotton was really undervalued. I think it was trading in the $40-some per hundredweight at that time, and he thought it should be at 80. And so he's excited about it, and I'm getting excited about it. I'm thinking, here I am living in Hutchinson, Minnesota, which, as you know, is a major cotton-producing area, and you would hate to miss out on this deal, right? So I was fairly newly married. My wife and I were in an older house that really needed some fixing, and we'd saved up about $15,000 to do home repairs. But I'm thinking, screw home repairs, we need to buy cotton futures, right? Because I've got an expert. I don't know if you guys work with experts or analysts or not, but I had the guy, right? So I went home and I was telling her about this huge opportunity in cotton futures, and she wasn't quite as excited as I was about it, but I finally talked her into giving me $5,000 out of the home savings or home repair fund to buy some cotton futures. Well, I'll tell you what, I went out and I think I bought 2 futures, and my goal was that every time we went up in value enough that I could use the paper profits to buy more, I was going to keep accumulating it. And if it hit the 80s that this expert told me it was going to, I was going to make $1 million in this trade. I was young, obviously incredibly good looking. Everything was going my way, right? So we get in, the market starts moving up, and my guy was brilliant. I mean, no sooner I bought those contracts, and it started moving my way. Now, one thing that I've noticed about myself over the years is when the market's going my way, my IQ goes up. I don't know about you guys, but when the market's going your way, are you guys smarter than when it's beating on you? Well, that was me. I was walking around Hutchinson, Minnesota, telling people about cotton, like I have a freaking clue about cotton, right? But you get kind of obnoxiously, just get obnoxious, I guess, for lack of a better word. Well, we were about 3 weeks into this deal, and the $5,000 had turned into $240,000. And at that point, my first wife and I weren't looking at home repairs anymore. We were looking at buying a brand new house, right? So I'll never forget, I was up in the UP of Michigan for a deal. This was obviously before computers and stuff. I called my broker to see what the market was doing that day, and it was moved limit up. Well, limit up move for me was a $40,000 day, which in 1985 I think was a pretty solid day. I'd take that day today, actually. So the only problem was, because it was locked limit, I couldn't invest the paper profits in more contracts. So I could hardly sleep that night. I was so excited. This thing is really working, right? Well, I called the next day to see what was going on, and the market was limit down. So I limit up one day, limit down the next. Should that be a clue that maybe things are turning around? Maybe. But you know what I thought, and I don't know if you guys have ever done this, the market had been going up and it has a setback. I remember thinking, well, it's good it has a little setback. Just let it retrace just a little bit. It's going to come back. It's going to go higher. And you guys ever do the old it's going to come back deal? Yeah, I bet you everybody in this room has said at some point it's going to come back. Well, it didn't come back. It kept dropping. And then I got to the point where the guy on his knees there trying to cut a deal with the creator of the universe to make cotton rally, right? Like God cares about my cotton position. But I remember saying, God, if you just give me one up day, I promise I'll get out of the market. Well, I got one up day. You think I get smart enough to get out? Nope. I said, see, I told you this thing was going to turn around. I should have taken the one day up, right? Because it kept dropping. It wasn't long, the paper profits were gone. The initial 5,000 bucks was gone. And by the time I blew out, I had a $10,000 margin call, which just happened to be what was left in the home repair fund. So I'm thinking, well, my wife's probably forgot that we were going to fix up this whole house. I really don't need to involve her in this situation. And so I wrote the check, sent it off, and didn't have that conversation with her. And about 3 months later, she starts asking me about it, and that's where the fear portion of the cycle hit for me. And I had to fess up that that money was long gone. Now, I also kind of was irritated with cotton for doing that to me. So I decided I was going to really stick it to the cotton guys and boycott cotton. You guys remember polyester shirts? That was a really bad move. I caved on my cotton boycott pretty quick. Well, you know, I tell that story, and hopefully none of you guys have done that with cotton, but I'll bet you pretty near every one of you have done that with corn, beans, or wheat, and probably have done it this year to some extent. You know, as we look at what's going on right now in the United States, this is the corn stalks, grain on farm, the quarterly report. And you can see the green line there is the stocks for this year. And it's been consistently, we've got higher stocks than we've had in years on farm. And we're doing that in the face of a market that we know is dropping. We know it's going against us, but folks are hanging on to it. And they're hanging on to it and hoping, I assume hoping for a rally, right? If you look at how Indiana farmers behave, over the last 5 years, the price chart is the average price received by Indiana farmers as reported through the USDA, and the other one is the percent of the crops sold by Indiana farmers by month, again, as the USDA is tracking it. And what you see is we've got about 40% of all the corn in the state of Indiana gets sold in October, November, and January. And if you look at the price structure, the lowest prices of the year are generally October, November, and January. So as I look at this and I think about what we can do better or different, it certainly appears to me that there's some room for improvement on how we approach marketing. Now, I think what makes marketing so stinking difficult is this quote by Annis Nine, which is great, I think. We don't see things as they are, we see things as we are. And let me flesh that one out a little bit. You know, when I first started trading, my boss every day, and as I said, we were both buying and selling ingredients. He said, every day when you come in, I want you to sit down and write down 10 reasons the market has to go up and 10 reasons the market has to go down. And then depending on whether I was buying or selling, I would have a list of good, solid, fundamental reasons that the market should either go up or should go down. And what you discover through that process is you can always come up with good fundamental reasons that the market's going to do something. So you've got this tug of war going on between the bullish and the bearish fundamentals. Now, I think what makes it difficult is that if I'm sitting on a bin full of corn, I'm going to hang on to the fundamentals that tell me there's a chance this thing can rally yet, right? I mean, I'm hanging on to that. I'm not looking at all the stuff telling me that this market is in the tank. So I'm looking for something that agrees with my position. I think that's just human nature. And I think that's what really makes marketing such an emotional roller coaster, that we get in that greed, hope, fear cycle of marketing. So as I thought about that, and as I thought about my experience with cotton, I really wanted to become a good futures trader, a good commodity trader. And I thought, God, there's got to be a better way of doing this thing. And so as I kind of sat back and analyzed the markets, the first thing that occurs to me is that in the grain market, there's a real seasonality to the price movements. We know, for example, that the price of December corn futures in the spring is generally higher than the price of December corn futures in the fall. And the reason is there's just a lot more unknowns in the spring that have become known in the fall. Early in the spring, we don't know if there's going to be prevent plant. We don't have an idea what yields are going to be. There's just a lot of factors that we don't have the answers to. As the year unfolds and those answers become known, in a normal year, barring some weather phenomenon or something, we end up with a normal crop, and we take that risk premium that was built out of the market early on, gets sucked out, so by the time you get to the fall, that October, November, when a lot of folks are selling, you're down in some pretty low price environment. So I thought, okay, seasonality is a good way it's a good starting spot for marketing. Then I also thought, well, I wonder if there's a way that we could kind of identify when within this seasonal time frame is a good idea or is a good time to making those incremental sales. And so I started kind of exploring that, and I'm going to jump to that next. And for me, it came down to technical analysis. As I looked at technical analysis It's just basically price charts and mathematical formulas that identify price trends and in some cases price objectives. And so what I did was I settled on 3 different technical indicators that if all 3 of these are telling me to sell corn, and it's in a period of time where seasonally I know the market trends lower, I'm going to go ahead and make an incremental sale at that point. What it does for me was to remove emotion from it. I'm not arguing with myself over, should I sell it because this fundamental, and this fundamental tells me I could rally. I'm just making a decision based on those technical indicators. In my mind, what technical indicators are is just a roadmap to tell me who's winning that tug of war between the fundamentals. At the end of the day, the fundamentals are going to carry the market, but since we have both bullish and bearish fundamentals, we got to figure out who's winning that tug of war. And in my mind, the technical indicators do that for me. So I kind of put this together, and in 2013, I was given a presentation. We're talking about that, and I got challenged by somebody in the audience. He goes, well, you say you do that with your farm, but you can put anything on paper and make it look good, right? And that's true. You can come up with all kinds of crap that probably doesn't work, but looks good on paper. And so I thought, well, that's a fair point. So I decided I was going to test this thing in real time. And to do that, I decided to enter the World Cup of Futures Trading. World Cup of Futures Trading is a contest run by Chicago Board of Trade. And everyone opens their own account. You put in $10,000. You trade live trading for a year. At the end of the year, best rate of return wins. Pretty straightforward. The year I did it, there was 100 different traders from 5 different continents. And nobody from Africa or Antarctica. We covered the rest of them. And what I did was just trade corn, beans, and wheat. I traded it from the short side because I wanted to trade it like I was hedging my crops or selling my own crops to see how it worked out. So as we got into that thing, it was a pretty interesting year. It was a pretty special year. But at the end of the day, when the smoke cleared, I was up just shy of 301% for the year. Ended up in 3rd place. The winner is a professional commodity manager from Brisbane, Australia. He was a graduate of London School of Economics. The guy that placed 2nd was actually a professional fund manager. It was Clint Eastwood's neighbor in Carmel, California. And then you had this dumb little country kid from South Dakota who was a co-op guy. So in my mind, this kind of played out. And this is kind of what I want to unfold with you guys this winter over the meetings, show you how to do that, to kind of take emotion out of the game. So if that makes any sense, that's kind of what I wanted to share. But then I was also trying to figure out how to end this talk today. And I was talking to a friend here a couple weeks ago, and we were talking about the low price environment we're in. And there's no doubt, it's a low price environment, it's ugly, and it's not fun. And he made the comment, Craig, I'd like to just win the lottery and say screw it to everything. I don't know, anybody else here willing to just win the lottery and walk away? Yeah, there's some takers on that deal, right? And this kind of a market environment, that I can understand that. But that got me thinking about an experience I had back in 1998. I did a consulting project in the country of Armenia. Armenia is a pretty interesting country. It was part of the former Soviet Union. And then when the Soviet Union broke up, one of the first things they did was declare war on Azerbaijan. Azerbaijan has also been part of the Soviet Union. They'd lived side by side for years. But somewhere in there was a portion of ancient Armenia that ended up in present-day Azerbaijan. So I was in government officials' offices over there, and they'd have 2 maps hanging on the wall. They'd have present-day Armenia, and they'd have historic Armenia, and they'd tell me, we're going to get our land back. And folks in the Middle East have a really, really long memory on stuff, it seems like, and like to cause problems. So they declared war on Azerbaijan. They invaded them right away. Now, what they didn't think through real clearly was that at that time, Armenia was getting most of their electricity and power from Russia, and the power lines that were bringing the electricity in Armenia came through Azerbaijan. So if you declare war on someone that can turn off your lights, guess what happens, guys? Pretty good shot, the lights are going off. So they lost electricity, lost power, and it was a pretty rough deal. I flew into the capital city of Yerevan, and in the Soviet Union days, it sits in hills and it was all forested. When I was there, they'd clear cut anything they could cook with or use to heat their homes and stuff. I was driving out the village I was going to be working at, and I was driving through Ararat Valley. And in front of every little house, there was stacks of bricks. Well, if you got out and looked at them, what it was straw, and they were mixing it with manure, mainly goat manure, and then they were forming it into bricks, sun drying it, and that's what they were using then to heat and to cook with. So until you've had a goat kebab cooked over a goat manure fire, I mean, it's a pretty special deal. It's like a barbecue with a different twang to it, so to speak. So that was the situation I was in out there. And as I got to the village I was working in, I saw people that if you had a job, the going rate there was $10 a month. Is what they were paying employees. I actually saw a guy standing in line trying to get a job that paid $10 a month. And as I'd been there a little bit and people started to get comfortable with me, I started having people come up to me and going, Craig, my dream is to win the lottery. And I'm thinking, you're cooking over goat crap making $10 a month. What are you doing buying lottery tickets, right? This made no sense to me whatsoever. But more and more people were telling me their dream was to win the lottery. So finally I went to my interpreter. I said, Nargis, what is this obsession you guys have with the lottery? I said, I don't know what I would do in your position, but I wouldn't be blowing on lottery tickets, I don't think. And she looked at me, and I'll never forget, she said, Craig, you don't understand. The lottery in Armenia is different than the lottery in the United States. And what she explained to me was, in Armenia, the U.S. Embassy was given a certain amount of visas that allowed Armenians to move to the United States. And the way they were handing them out was the lottery system. Winning the lottery in Armenia was winning the opportunity to come to the United States. And that has just always stuck with me. You know, we go through some tough times here, and no doubt with these low prices, it's going to be a tough year. But we know this thing is going to cycle through and be on the upside. But at the end of the day, I feel so blessed to live in a country like this with the opportunities we have, being in an industry like this that is second to none. And I just wanted to share that with you. You know, when there's times it's kind of reset my thinking a little bit, you know, on how I view life. In the eyes of much of the world, we already have won the lotteries by virtue of where we have the pleasure of living and raising our families. So with that, I hope to see you guys this winter when we roll us out. I'm really excited about this approach to marketing. I think it can put more money in your pocket and take a lot of stress out of your life.